Hi, my name is Ben with Ramshackle Pantry, where we cook classic recipes and explore the history behind them. You can check me out at ramshacklepantry.com, or probably have a link down below. Today we're going to make a tuna skillet helper recipe. So this is going to be a tuna recipe. However, the idea behind this is I want to empower you to make 100 different recipes using what you have in your pantry or your refrigerator already. So even though I'm going to be using tuna and egg noodles and milk to make this, I'm going to give you some options along the way where you can make all sorts of different flavors, whether it be beef, chicken, veggie stuff. I want you to be able to come out of this making a lot of different recipes. So today we're going to be focusing on the tuna skillet helper recipe, where we obviously are going to be using tuna, but think about the options I'm going to provide you. You can make this with a chicken, or you can make this with beef, or you can just do veggies. I'm also using egg noodles. These are 4 servings of egg noodles. However, you can use macaroni, you can use rice. Egg noodles tend to be a little bit up there on the calories. They're about 210 calories per servings. If you want to lighten this up a little bit, jasmine rice is about 160 calories per serving. I am using 1 can of corn and a 1.5 cups of frozen peas. I'm not a huge fan of canned peas, but you can really use whatever veggies or canned veggies that you already have, or what's in your freezer. If you're using fresh veggies, you're going to want to saute them in a little bit of olive oil first, just to lighten them up. This presumes that your veggies are cooked or edible just the way that they are. And here I have 2% milk. This is 2 cups of 2% milk. Usually I use whole milk, but the delivery driver they deliver what they're going to deliver. 2% would work, skim might work. This is another place where you can really change it up. So we're going to be using tuna, which seems to go with cream, but you can use veggie broth, you can use chicken broth, you can use beef broth, you can use whatever you have. And with those different combinations, so if you use beef broth, you might use a pound of cooked ground burger, or with this cream, maybe you're going to use chicken, or you could do the chicken broth. If you use veggie broth, that will go with everything. Probably the most important part of this recipe is butter and flour. So what's going to happen here is we're going to melt the butter and mix in the flour and turn it into kind of a paste. Once we have it in this paste, we're going to add our liquid. In our case, it's 2% milk, and mix it in and combine it nicely. Once we heat this up, it will thicken up. So it'll be similar to what you might get out of a box, except taste so much better. It's going to taste like something you made rather than a boxed thing. So let's get started. Right now I have my burner on low. I'm going to add butter and allow it to melt. While it's melting, and by the way, I'm using a cast iron skillet. Use what you have, as long as it's big enough to hold all of this stuff. This one might actually be a little bit smaller. In terms of seasoning, today I'm just going to be using salt and pepper, but really you can use anything. As long as it goes with the meat and the veggies that you're using, it's acceptable. Oftentimes, I'll add a pinch of cayenne. Another traditional one is to add a little bit of nutmeg when you're using a dairy product like this. Whatever you have, we have a Cajun seasoning in our fridge, or in our cupboard. We have a sriracha salt. Whatever flavors you like and you think would go with tuna. But salt and pepper are probably the most important ones. And mind you, all of the things here are basically cooked already. So our tuna, it comes out of the can. We just got done cooking the egg noodles before I started on camera. So really we're throwing everything together for a good, nutritious meal. Now in terms of calories of this dish, how it's made here will be about 500 calories per serving. There's 4 servings in how I'm cooking it here. You can lighten it up, like I said, by using rice, using skim milk. If you use veggie broth or chicken broth or stock or beef broth or stock, that will probably lighten it up a little bit. Notice how the butter is starting to melt. If you're using a cast iron, this is fine right now, but I have my trusty pot holder to the side just in case it gets a little too hot. And I'm going to turn this up. I have it on low. I'm going to turn it up to medium low. When you're doing this with dairy, one thing to consider is that you're going to want to make sure that nothing scalds. So you're going to see when I add the flour, it's going to mix in like a paste, and then I'm going to start adding the dairy and mixing it pretty continuously to make sure that the dairy doesn't scald. This is also a concern if you're using chicken broth or beef broth, but it is more so a concern when using dairy. Tuna isn't really my favorite meat to work with, particularly the canned stuff. I don't usually cook with a lot of canned, but I do understand it's a great way to get protein. It's a great way to get some nutrition into your family's diet, and in a pinch, it works great. In my house, my wife is actually a vegetarian, so during dinner time when I spend most of the time cooking, I'll often substitute mostly vegetables, or we use some soy products too. For example, I might use a vegetable broth with this instead of dairy and add in some Beyond Beef crumbles or Morningstar crumbles as a way. You could also add in some taco seasoning. That would be a good one. Alright, so our butter is getting pretty close here. And at this point, we don't really want to heat it up too much. So then I'll slowly add in this flour and mix it really well. We don't really want it to burn. So we had 2 tablespoons of butter, and this is 3 tablespoons of flour. Notice how it's kind of turning into a paste, a thick paste. This is exactly what we want. This has its roots in French cooking, and that may sound fancy, but it's stuff that home cooks do all the time. Now, so we got the paste in there. Now I'm going to start adding slowly dairy and mix it in. So I just added a little bit. I'm going to turn it down. I'm not like super excited about it steaming up at this point. So every time I add a little bit more, I mix in the paste, and the idea is that we want to incorporate that paste into the cream to make it kind of a consistent, texture. That flour will act as a thickening agent, and will kind of give it that helper feel that you might think of when you make something out of the box. But once again, this is going to taste 50 times better than most of the things you're going to get out of the box. So I still have little chunks and tidbits in there, so I'm going to heat this up a little bit and just continue stirring to try and get those little hunks of flour and butter to mix in. And right now it's very creamy, it's very liquidy, and what we're going to find as it heats up and as this mixes together is that it's going to thicken. but we're not quite there. So I had it on low. I'm turning it up to medium now. And when I'm using cream like this, one of the cool things that you can do is you can take, once this thickens up, and we'll be able to see, notice how it's kind of acting very much like something you can put into a glass. It'll thicken up, but you can add cheese at this point. Not at this point, as soon as it starts thickening up. So you can take between a cup or 2 cups of cheddar cheese, Swiss cheese, gorgonzola, blue cheese, whatever flavors you like, and then add your pasta. It's a way, it does add quite a few calories, but it tastes delicious. So for example, if you wanted to use macaroni instead of egg noodles, this basically turns into macaroni and cheese. Then on top of that, if you wanted to put it into a casserole dish, heat your oven up to say 400 and put it in your casserole dish, put breadcrumbs on top, maybe some more cheese. You'll have an old-fashioned macaroni and cheese. But if we're making this in the skillet, by the way, hey Kate, come here, come here. I don't know if you can see my puppy dog. Ramshackle Pantry viewers, this is my puppy dog, Kate. Hey baby girl. Kate, shoot. She's my helper. Still going, it's still liquid. Making a little bit of a mess, that's okay. Let's clean it up a little bit. And because this is cream, I'm going to continue stirring it in here. Now we're starting to see it start to thicken. Doesn't really feel like a real sauce yet though, or look like one. But as it heats up, it will start to thicken up. That flour. So we talked about French cooking. When I added the butter and the flour, it was basically a roux. Now I'm adding cream, and that sort of turns it into a bechamel sauce. Once again, fancy French words, but really these are things that home cooks just do. So it's starting to thicken up real nice. And when you talk bechamel, that's when you might add a little nutmeg or a little cayenne pepper. And really, that's the sauce that we're going to end up working with today. Oh, there we go. So it's now you can start to tell the viscosity is starting to thicken up real good. If you haven't figured it out by now, we kind of have a little bit of a madhouse with the animals. We have 3 cats and a dog, and we love them all. Okay. Oh yeah, there we go. Just starting to bubble. You don't really want it to get much hotter than just like the beginning of the bubbles, and especially then you want to make sure that you're stirring and mixing this dish. And this would be the point if I wanted to add cheese, you could. So I would maybe start adding in between a cup and 2 cups of shredded cheese. Usually what you're going to use is like a Swiss cheese or a cheddar cheese, but you can use any sort of melty cheese. So it's starting to bubble up. I'll let that go. So now this sauce is starting to be real nice and creamy, and everything's incorporated. And I'm going to add my noodles now. Could have probably used a little bit bigger of a skillet on this. I have 2 cast iron skillets. One is huge, and this is the other one. So this comes in, and everything is mixing together really well. I'm going to add my veggies in. This is quite the tight fit, but it'll work out all right. I have it on medium right now, so I'm still just sort of incorporating all the flavors. The only things I have left are the tuna and salt and pepper. Now, because we aren't adding cheese to this and it's all cream, we're going to want to be a little bit liberal with the salt and pepper, but add it to your taste. Cheese naturally has a bunch of salt in it, so it oftentimes is enough or close to enough. And then pepper, of course, to your liking. And if you have fresh cracked pepper, that's always better. But you know, we use Kirkland's Best. Not for everything, but for our everyday cooking, that's what we have. So now this is all mixing in real nice. All of our veggies should be working together. I'm going to add in my tuna. Once again, if you wanted to add in ground beef, you could do that. If you wanted to add in canned chicken or a chicken breast that has been baked and cooked up or sauteed and cooked up, you can add that. As long as you're adding cooked meats to this, you're going to have something good. Oh, cat, you need to get down. This is Val. You want to make sure everything is warm. I'm going to turn it up a little bit. Put this sucker. This is my first video. I hope to make a whole bunch more. If you check out my recipes on ramshacklepantry.com and want me to actually make one on video, let me know, and maybe I will feature one in an upcoming recipe or an upcoming video. There we go. Start to heat up. little salt. Add some pepper. This skillet dish serves 4 people, has 4 servings. If you have a hungry crew, maybe it serves 2. But this is 4 servings of pasta, and it's packed full of the veggies and corn and tuna. And then maybe you want to top it off with some parsley, some Parmesan cheese, more salt, pepper, whatever seasonings you like. As I stated, we're just using salt and pepper in this. So for really the amount of ingredients that we're using, you're getting a full meal with stuff that most of us have in our pantry or our refrigerator already. You don't have to stick with cream. You can go with chicken broth. You can go with beef broth. This is really the kind of recipe that you can switch up. Once you get the butter and flour mixture down, it opens up an entire world of possibilities in terms of recipes. So that's it for our tuna skillet helper. You can make this really in about the same amount of time that you cook a boxed meal, and it tastes so much better, and it's healthier for you, and it's cheaper. So give this tuna skillet helper a try. Once again, check out my recipes on ramshacklepantry.com. Thank you so much. Bye. Okay.